If I can share my screen and get PowerPoint to open up. Never solved this coming up on the wrong screen with PowerPoint. But what we're going to talk about is a virtual studio and lighting simulation. And it is, okay, there we go. The lighting simulator is just a tool. You can use it for learning. You can use it for experimentation. You can plan a shoot. You can use it to document your plan. And you can use that documentation to communicate with the other people that are going to be on the set for that shoot. So here's kind of a screenshot of that basic satellite, one of their standard displays. They have 4 views of their environment. The setup where you're configuring it, views where you look at the images that you have captured, an export that is about exporting the configuration in your setup, and a way to connect to the community. So what I want to present today is just and we just had the overview of the satellite, but a introduction to lighting pattern terminology. And these are the classic lighting patterns that if you took a lighting class at Precision, or if you've been to any of the PPA classes, they're going to teach you these lighting patterns, the styles. They're going to talk about light quality. We'll step through that, and then we will jump into a live demo of the simulator. And when we bring up the simulator, please ask questions whenever they come up. And you can do that in the rest of this PowerPoint also. What we're not going to talk about is mixed lighting. And this is something that I know Josh does all the time. I do motion blur with and without strobes. But the simulator can't really capture that and demonstrate it. So we could talk about that in another meeting or set up a small group to just dig deep into any of these facets of artificial light. Visual Studio has a real sophisticated way to pose models, but it's just beyond any reasonable amount of time tonight to dig into dealing with the models. So here are those basic lighting patterns I talked about. There is the flat light. This is what you get if you put your speed light on top of your camera and manage to get the exposure reasonably correct. This is what your image would look like. This is a butterfly or paramount lighting pattern, and I'll show you in a little more detail later. But there's a butterfly shadow under the lady's nose. That's where it gets its name. The other thing it does is carve these cheeks so you get the light there. This is the loop lighting pattern where you have a shadow off the nose. It forms just a little loop down towards the lip. Then there's a classic Rembrandt pattern, which is a high light source and to the side of the model. And the characteristic is this triangle on the side of the face. And I think split light is really easy to understand and see here. And the campfire or ghost illumination, I just didn't bother to put in, but that's light from below. Here's an example of a short light or short lit model, which really says the camera is seeing the side of the face that has the least light on it. So you see light and shadow. And the broad light is when the camera is looking at the most illuminated side of the face. And if you talk to a lot of the professionals or take a lighting course, you're going to hear never broad light abroad. There's also hard and soft light as far as the quality of light. Everything I've been showing you up until now has been a hard light. In other words, just one light, reflector, really harsh shadows, sharp lines on the shadow. A soft light is where you're using a bigger modifier and you see light under the lady's chin here. The shadow lines are softer, etc. So let's open up the simulator and take a look at what I can do there. And what we'll do is go back and look at those lighting patterns in the simulator. So this is literally where I got those images. I exported them as JPEGs so I can paste them into the PowerPoint. And this is that flat light setup where the light and camera are almost exactly together. And I guess probably since we're talking about using this tool, some of the things I should tell you, and since my fingers have not left my hand, but you can't see them, you can move this screen around, you can rotate it like this so you can look at it from the model's perspective, from above the camera. And I'm doing this either by clicking on this icon here or using the right mouse button to do the move. The other thing that I've done is in the studio, I can choose the color of the walls and the floor. Everything's black just because it shows up there. And we take a step over to the next image, which moves the light just a little bit. So now the light has moved up here high and is pointing down at the subject. And this is the classic Paramount lighting pattern. So if you move the light, you get a laser point to show you exactly where it's pointing. And I've got a small modifier on there that focuses the light.
Reach.
And I guess the other thing to learn is that all the camera controls are over here in the right-hand pane. You can select your camera format, the lens you have on it. There's a huge selection of lenses. And yes, the camera is in manual. Just for Josh. You'll find if you're shooting in the studio, you're always going to be in manual because you want to control your shutter speed, your aperture, and your ISO is a freebie, so you're not making your lights work too hard, pulling a lot of power out of them. Oh, one other thing, we'll tell you what, we'll look at it a little bit more later when we have to change modifiers. So if we look at the next setup here.
Can I ask questions?
Sure, please.
You just showed the camera settings. Is there a place where you show the flash setting?
The flash power is either down here on this lower row, or if you come up here and click on the flash, you've got a slider for its power.
I see.
And in this environment, what I usually end up doing is I'm controlling the exposure using the power out of the strobes. When I'm shooting tabletop stuff out in my garage, I'm usually at 1/1/200, which is my camera's sync speed. A aperture dependent upon what I'm trying to accomplish, and an ISO to kind of make that work. I think I saw somebody typing a question, and I'm not going to be able to read questions and answer, so please just speak up.
Somebody had asked if it lets you import 3D models or anything like that.
That is one of my wishes. I would love to have 3D models come in. They've got a few objects over in the prop section that you can bring in. They've got couches and chairs and beds and office equipment or office tables. Then they get around to some of the common. Did you guys see this stuff scrolling around? Is Webex keeping it?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you finally get around to boxes and apple crates or apple boxes, flats like you use to move stuff around, and then just some solid objects.
Mm.
And all of these pieces, you can put multiple on the set. You can change their size. You can change if they're like the box will have X, Y, and Z dimensions to it. You can change those.
Can you change the color of those 3D items?
Let's see, Patty.
Okay. Other than using the lights.
And I think the answer is yes.
Ah,
There's your red rubber ball.
I like that song. Thanks.
And oh, that's the wrong way. Remove it. Some things you can drag off the screen, which I would like, but you have to remove from set to delete something.
Can you specify model's height?
Yes. We can go look at the model here.
That's great.
So
I have some tall people I deal with, and I have some very short people I deal with.
and you can put multiple models on the set. So here's another model on the set. And let's see what we have for her. We have her selected. There are, oh. She doesn't have as many options as some of the other models. Let me get a different model. I know this one has all the options for her. So, by the way, this moves her up and down, so you can set her on boxes. You can get her to rotate. Oh, she doesn't. But she has lots. Where are the positions? Oh, here we go. Like I said, we weren't going to spend a lot of time in models because I haven't dug deep into it. But the standing model, we have a whole set of poses that we can choose for her. And height. We can't change her height.
Try size.
Oh, I missed it.
There at the bottom where it says 5.
Ah,
Oh, yeah, cool.
that would be height for me. But yes, we can change the model's size. There's your 5-foot model. Oh, by the way, this has imperial and metric measurements in it. So you can switch back and forth. The company that makes it is a German company, and they've left us with a few artifacts of being German. In particular, some of their nomenclature just doesn't sync up with what I'm used to. For instance, thermalite. Well, that turns out to be in normal terminology in text is a continuous light.
Crazy Germans.
Yeah.
Someone was asking about, can you specify the model of speed lights or other lights? And I know you can, but can you show that?
You can specify, I don't think you can specify precisely the model, but you can choose a speed light, at least in speed lights. And speed lights are pretty generic. And by the way, this is the speed light selector. And if we put a speed light up here, where we can see it. Get rid of a couple of models. Here's our speed light. Bring it up close. We have enough light to illuminate our model.
The camera's pointed at the other model.
This is what
You're pointing to, yeah, there you go.
There we go. Speed light out of the way. There. Turn this other light off. This should be my speed light. Now the speed light has some parameters on it that aren't on the other lights. In particular, you can change the angle of the head. You can change the zoom on it, which will light on the subject. And I have played with this enough to know it worked. And then you can change its power. Speed light is roughly 40 to 60 watt seconds of power. The strobe that I've been using in here is a 500 watt second strobe, but it's tuned way back. It's down at, of course, my picture's in the way, about 7 watt seconds. So any more questions, and I'm really just wanting to move on to the next image and continue to answer questions.
Bill, if you hover over your picture, you can minimize it.
Oh, I got it. And I could, it would move so I could read what was under it. So if we go back to the timeline here, we've been playing with this image and have really banged it around. But if I go and change to a different image, it'll ask me if I want to apply or discard the changes. So I can discard the changes and my previous frame is back right where it was. This is the Rembrandt pattern, and you can kind of see the strobe is up higher and moved around to the right-hand side. Something I've done, and you can do with these, first of all, I complained about it. You can turn the light stand on and off. And that's not a real biggie, except when you get it in close proximity to something else. And a couple of these images I've done, you would really do with a boom arm, a light on a boom arm instead of on a simple tripod. So you just make the tripod disappear, or the light stand. And card again. Here's the split light view. And now the light's almost 90 degrees to the subject, or even a little behind her, and pointing down across her face. And because this is a hard light, that's all you see. here I changed and went back and actually used the butterfly pose, that one, and I just changed the modifier on the light. So instead of using the simple straight light that's pretty harsh, I came down and chose I've forgotten which one, but we'll use a 39 inch octabox. And you can just see, as soon as that's changed, how the face softens and the shadows are softened under her neck. So everything we've done so far here has just been a single light. So if we were to go open up a different version of this and look at doing the same thing with multiple lights. This is almost that same shot, but I've brought in a strip light and put under the model's face down low. This is commonly done with just a reflector. So I've got a big octabox, a light blower instead of a reflector. And now we can actually turn lights on and off and see what they're doing to the image. So I turned off the light from underneath the strip box. It goes away in the image. And you see that basic soft light that we looked at earlier. But putting the strip box underneath opens up the shadows and opens up the rest of the face. So you have fewer shadows. And she's still just vanishing into the black background. So if we move around and put a light behind her, get some separation, now we see her outlined a little better. That's an option. Another option is to put the light up on the wall, turn it at the wall. So now you see a gray wall instead of the black wall. And I don't think I have it to show, but if you put up a gray wall or a gray black backdrop based on your placement of the lights and the model, you could have that wall be black, white, or gray. But here's that light on the wall, and see how much more it makes her stand out and separates her from the rest of the environment. And this is that same setup, literally just select the light, come over and choose a colored gel. And select that for the camera. Yellow would be a nice choice. And you swap the gel on your light. Any questions?
Bill,
Yes, sir.
do you have to start from scratch every time, or do they give you some templates to start from?
I'll go over here at the end, or actually we can just go there right now. First of all, I'll show you what they bring up from the beginning. This is the way it starts. So this is starting a fresh one, just the way they bring it up. I'll choose the large room as a new setting. And this is how the set comes out of the box. You turn it on. This is what you've got. They've got 2 lights set. You can see what the lights are doing for the model. They've got gray, well, white ceiling and wall, or let's see what color they are. Almost white ceiling and wall and a gray floor. Yeah, the floor is about 50% gray. So this is what you get as a starting point. And, you know, for basic playing with this, here's what it's supposed to do. You can go and select your hair. You can select the clothing you put on her. Or with this model, you have a choice of none. You can change her eye color, her complexion. They have skin hardness, and it actually softens the image pretty good, or it just becomes specular. In other words, there's bright spots reflected off of it. So you get to change that. You can adjust makeup, hair color, eye color. You can come in and change where the model's eyes are looking. You can have them rotate towards the camera, which I think is or away. You can have her turn her face to the camera, or you can come in and select the model and choose this button and get the ability to move her precisely in 3 dimensions and selecting different parts of the body. So if you want to position her so you have just the right little triangle for your setup that you want on her cheek, you can manipulate her head to get that right.
Can you like change her position where she's squatting or sitting, and can you put her in one of those chairs that they showed her?
I haven't tried that, Patty, but pose, style pose. So here are the sitting poses that we have for the model. And she sits quite comfortably without a chair.
Which leads me to believe that you could probably put the chair underneath her the way that.
I would suspect that is a possibility. Past chairs.
There's a couch.
Oh, how about just a block?
Cool.
We'll make that a gray granite. I like something darker than that. This color picker should seem pretty familiar to everybody. So there, and of course you can put multiple models out there. And while we're in model land here, let's swap her out. Put her back in the same dress. And I have seen something. It is not coming up for me. But there is a way to set up multiple poses with your model and then have move smoothly between those poses. Move their joints and hands. Of course, if you come in here, you got the hand and at the shoulder. You can also get the hand and bring it around. So every joint that'll flex can be moved. And there even, when you get into it deeply, there's sliders. And I'm not having success with this. I'm sure that came across Webex as smoothly. So you can move something like this and all the joints stay in the natural position. So kind of moving on to something a little different than dealing with the models. And we can come back and work on that. I want to kill this one completely. Here is a 3-light setup with colored gels on it. So you can see that it does all of the light science correctly in that. Let me change the model's complexion a little bit. That we have pretty natural color on her face. And I know this is one of the lighting scenarios Josh likes to do. He's used 3 strobes with different colored gels so that the additive color gives you a natural tone and just the part of the scene that you're looking for that. Something I've noticed is that I get pretty fast rendering on this system, but when I change something a little bit, and by the way, this is moving the camera, I get a very harsh rendering. And as soon as I quit moving things, it does the full computation of how the light would actually mix and look, in this case on the background.
That's gotta be a lot of math, just because I've done it. I mean, obviously I shoot like this in real life. And all of that blending that's gotta be a lot. What's interesting is that it's picking up like on the shirt collar and all of that, and her cheeks, it's picking up all of that as well. Like that's a lot of data for depth and for everything else.
And you have, you can move this any way you want. So you could plan your shot down to, I really want this little bit of green on her cheek.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens if I move this light? I'm going to get where I can reach it here. And I see shadows move, but I didn't see that much change in her cheek.
Yeah. How, if you don't want me to ask it, how close can you make those 3 lights together?
How close can I make them? Physically close?
Yeah. Like usually when I'm trying to do it, I may only have like 2 feet total distance between all the flashes. So how close can you physically, in the software, how close can you make them appear to be? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm following you.
A lot of times, actually, I have trouble with all my light stands. Like it looks like an octopus by the time I'm done with it because they're all stacked inside of each other and everything else.
Camera out of the way.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty close. Okay. I was just curious.
Get this guy around here where I can get a hold of me. I'd say that's pretty close, Josh.
Looks like you can put them literally on top of each other.
I think they can occupy the same space. I don't think that's part of the physics that this modeling system understands.
Yeah, that's fine. I was just a lot of times like on that Agapanthus photo. I mean, my flashes, there was 3 of them and they were within a foot of each other. So, yeah. It's actually probably, yeah. In real life, it's actually very hard because light stands really get in the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have the option in this tool to make light stands vanish.
Okay. Cool.
So that's a very different appearance than what I put together earlier. And this is with cyan, magenta, and yellow as the lights. And I did another one.
Question?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering, have you verified any of these settings with the real life camera and lights, and actually the photo comes out to be roughly the same of what the simulator is telling you?
That's something I was going to do. I was actually going to use a mannequin head that I bought and haven't used. But I ran out of time between doing this and working. When the COVID-19 came along, I had told management that I was going to retire. And I took the opportunity to say, you know, I can't travel and shoot. I could just continue to work. So I have been doing software development on a digital simulator ever since, well, the past 10 years. That's what I've done. So I'm continuing to do it. But I will, at least what I have seen, the behaviors, and I've played with things like light fall off with distance. I have seen nothing that seems like it's incorrect. Some of the things that we haven't talked about that's not here, we're quote shooting strobes, but there is no flash. And we're seeing the same image real time over in this display that we would have if we shot it with a strobe, but there's no flash. So that's a little out of characteristic. But any of the other behaviors of the light and the shadows seem to fit just what you'd expect, because if you're looking at this one just for color blending, here's the red light, here's the blue light that's up above, here's your green, here's your magenta, and if the lights were sharper focus, there'd be a white spot right here in the center.
Yeah, I'm sure the light physics is probably done correctly. I just was wondering the nuances of the lights that you were showing us earlier, like the shadows and the position, if that can be duplicated or replicated in a real life scenario. And I was just curious to see if you had actually verified that, but I understand. Thank you so much for doing all of this, by the way.
I can tell you from my experience shooting with a lot of strobes that's really close to what it would look like at those distances. Just looking at it, I can tell that it's 95% accurate, at least, just based on shooting. I thought it's interesting, like the shadow detail is what we play with a lot, and seeing that change let me know that it was actually doing some physics modeling and not just, presets and sprites. So yeah, it looks, I mean, from my experience, it looks really close. Especially like on this tri-light one where you get these like green edges and red edges, like that's very similar to what I get in the real world at about those distances.
Well, that's good. That's good to hear. Is this software simulator free, or you have to subscribe for it?
I prepared for that question. So here's their website. The basic simulator right now is $79. I think I will be able to get a discount code from them. If not, I know one discount code that's on the web we can point to and take advantage of. Give me a little bit of time to ask for the discount code so that we just get our club's name out there with the discount code, and that we have people wanting to start using the tool. And the other thing that we probably want to look at is, let's go back to something that's got a little bit more in it. So we're looking at setup on the multi-lights that we've done. We can go to view. And here are the processed images that are for this set. And you can go back to those. These are nice, moderate, high-res JPEGs. So you have those to look at. If you look at the export window, you can see how the set was put together and where the lights are, the modifier that's used, the power. And this is one without the gel. There's the one with the gel. So you've got all of the little fiddly pieces there. I am not real good with this, but you can say this is the distance from the light to the camera there. So it's saying that's about 8 feet. And from the camera to the model is 4 feet. So we've got the model quite a ways off of the wall. And then we can, these other lights, this case is just really close together. Some of the other lighting setups would have the light spread out a little bit more. Take a look. So this is an example of playing with light fall off. When I set this up and went to a landscape view, this left-hand light was in frame. So I had to move it way back to get it out of frame. And if we look at the power levels on the lights, that light back in the corner is the highest powered light on the set. And this is another thing that's interesting to do with this. You can turn off the lights and see what your set of lights you're doing. So here's just the front light coming down across him, and it's quite a bit of shadow, pretty dramatic. But if we come in and add the lights from behind him, all of a sudden you get the sharp edge around him set out from the background. The same with the other side. So, there's what our two strip boxes from the backside are doing. By the way, I'm doing all of this with just clicking the enable buttons on the lights. And with the strip boxes here, you can actually, and I had trouble with this and learned to do this, strip boxes roll. So you can change their angle. I'm not seeing it change. Yeah, it's changing this image. You can just look down his right hand or the right screen right, his arm picks up light as the strip box becomes more vertical. So you can do that. And like a lot of the sliders in Photoshop, you can use them as a slider or scrub them, or you can go in and type in a number. Put them where you want. So when I wanted to set things up like the tricolor one with the magenta and cyan and yellow, I went in and actually set the light levels or the height of the light stands to match and adjusted the angle of the light so they lined up. Turn the other light on. One other thing I learned late was how to do black and white photography. Just buttoned up at the top will get you a monochrome image. We talked about view and export. Community is a way to see what all of the other users are doing and what they're posting to the community, to the satellite community. So if you pick out one of their images that you like the way it's lighted, or you want to understand how they did that, you can get a quick look at it just by clicking on it. And if you want to download it, you can actually download the whole set and bring it into your environment.
That's a pretty neat set. That's a pretty neat feature, actually.
Yeah, it's like I saw some images that it's like, okay, how did we set this up? I could put part of it together, but it leaves nothing to guesswork once you say, okay, how has this been done? So there's an immense amount of information to be picked up from looking at the community and just working with the tool. And I have not figured out how deep all of this goes, and some of them I have not understood. The model Thomas just leaves something to be desired. And so does this hair. But you can see people have incorporated things like this ring into their images, and I'm not quite sure how to do that. The things I would like them to be able to support is a way to do 3D models of an object, bring those in, and a different dimensioning scheme. I'd like to have a dimensioning scheme that has a center line of zero, so you can be plus and minus off either side of it. But that's because I spent too much time working with AutoCAD. Everything has a zero reference. Anything else we should dig into here? This is actually going quicker than I had expected. So we got time to answer questions or just have me drive through an interesting scenario.
Go ahead.
Bill, I was just curious. I mean, how does this work into your usual workflow? You just fool around, say, "Oh, that would look cool," or how do you use it practically speaking?
Well, one of the things I've done with this, just getting started, and literally, I looked at this a couple of years ago when the only light sources I had was speed lights. And they didn't support speed lights. And that would have meant a lot of guesswork. So I went back to it just recently and saw that they had speed light support, quite a few additional features, and I now have some studio strobes. So the first thing I've done with it, and I've literally had it about 4 weeks now, and have gotten an hour or two of seat time 5 days a week or so, is I've gone back and said, okay, what lighting scenarios have I seen that I want to create and be sure I understand? And Evelyn and I have both taken several classes, and I've had to study it so I could pass the CPP test. So I've gotten, a lot of insight into what other people are doing. And this is an example of, okay, here is a, different image. This is the beauty light location, the Paramount light. This is that standard image where you see all the time for just the really pretty portrait of a female. So strip it down. This is the basic one light. People use reflectors underneath, and in this one, it would be easy to put one in there, but you end up having your subject involved in the shoot, holding something for light, getting the angle of it right so it reflects correctly, and then you want somebody that's not used to posing to pose for you. So I thought the simple thing was put something in there, and this is another standard light configuration. Put something in there that makes sense for the setup. So if you put this strip box under there, you have full control of how much light's under the chin and how soft the shadows are. I'm just bumping the power up on that strip box. So you get control of it that way. Another one, I've got this octabox off the background to give us this gradient of light behind the subject. Another one that is common is to do a, come on, move where I want to, not what I told you to do. This could be faster. I've tried a pen pad with this, but it just goes berserk.
I can tell you how I would use this in my workflow. There's a couple. Yeah, there's a couple. There's a couple different reasons I would use this. One, I write a lot of educational posts, and I want to describe the lighting that I did, and it can be difficult. I can take behind the scenes photos, but you can't always capture everything or see distances or whatever else. And so being able to recreate what I did in the real world, but then in a way that people can learn from, like that to me as an educator is huge. To being able to, like, hey, I used, like, literally the last shoot I did, I had 5 lights, and that can be, in one photo, that can be very hard to capture all of that. So having a 3D model where you can see the distances, the powers, the settings, so that somebody else can recreate it if they want, like, that to me is huge. But then also, because I use so many lights in my setups, a lot of it I'm kind of winging it. And you're wasting people's time when you're doing that. Now, I'm fairly quick, but even still, I'm still wasting people's time. Right? If you're renting a studio to set something up, you're renting by the hour. Well, if it takes you 15 minutes to set up, if you've wasted a quarter of your rental already. And so if you can go in with notes and have heights and everything all ready to go, if you knew, and that's why I asked how tall the model was. You could have it set where, like, okay, I need this light stand to be at 7 foot, this one at 5 foot, this light stand at 3 foot. I need this gel, this power, da 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 da. And it's, if it can save you 15 minutes a shoot, like, that's a huge value, especially if you're having to rent studio space or a location fee or anything like that. Like, that's a pretty big one. But the third one for me is just experimentation, right? If you want to shoot somebody, you got to have somebody around to photograph. My kids don't sit still, and my wife doesn't let me take her photo anymore. So for me, that'd be a good way to experiment and kind of come up with some new ideas in a way that, right, like, I don't need them to figure out how to do broad lighting. I'm working on it. I have a lot of lights, but I want to try a 5-light backlight. I want to see what that looks like, and like let me try to throw some stuff in front of it. And so for me, just being able to do that, once you get past about 2 lights, it gets very hard to set up. Right, 1 light's easy, 2 lights is fairly easy. You start getting to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lights. That's a lot of information. To kind of keep handy. So yeah, Charles, exactly. To create like a cheat sheet for me, or maybe like, maybe we're doing a 3-look setup. So like some of the times when we shoot for like e-commerce, or we've shot some designers, like we have 5 different looks we want to do. Well, instead of me having to think on the fly, I can pre-light everything and print it all off and be like, okay, here's our look 1, set it up. Here's our look 2, set it up. Here's our look 3, set it up. But also to be able to show either the model or the client or whoever we're working with, hey, this is what we're going to do. Then we're going to do this. Then we're going to do this. And that way your communication, I thought that was actually the biggest thing when Bill was right at the beginning of the presentation, which was as a communication tool where you can go to, your clients, your models, or whoever's hiring you. Like, I want to do, here's 3 looks I came up with. Which 2 do you want to do? And then they can pick. And as a way to communicate for a lot of what I do, right? If you've never seen what I do, it's hard to explain it. And so being able to show them like an example of kind of what I think, without having to shoot it already, that saves me a lot of time. I'm working on something right now, and I'm trying to explain to a client what I want to do, and I'm going to have to shoot it, and so that they'll hire me so I can shoot it again. Well, it'd save me a lot of time if I could just set it up in this, and then send them a printout and be like, I'm thinking something along these lines. What do y'all think? And so it would save me a lot of time and effort having to like set up light stands and find a space and do all that. That makes sense.
Yeah, it's a great way for you to make some new friends with all those models.
I don't like people.
Right up until your wife sees you playing with this program and says, "Who's that?"
Yeah, it was funny. I was helping a client, one of our one-on-one clients, and she started sending me all these texts late at night. My wife's like, "Who's texting you and sending you photos at 11 o'clock at night?" But they were photos of steers. I was like, "Don't worry, babe. Look, they're photos of cows." So, yeah, she asked me a lot of. She's kind of used to it by now. Honestly, I get so much weird stuff sent my way. It's like, whatever. She's also German, which is why I was making German jokes earlier. My favorite is you can always tell a German, you just can't tell them much. My wife and my mother-in-law do not like that joke.
I wonder why.
Maybe because the shoe fits.
Yeah. The other one is I'm 100% German, but I'm taking pills.
Oh.
Question?
I don't get that.
You don't get that one? They're taking medication to not be so German.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
You can get those at Worst Fest in New Braunfels, by the way.
What?
Is it liquid medication?
Comes in a sign.
Last night it was.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
You mentioned something about Speedlight that was added just recently. Is it just generic Speedlight, or do they actually support the model?
They have just one generic speed light, which has kind of the expected capability on it. Let me bring one in here. So they've got just this one speed light. And then they've got some typical speed light modifiers for it. And they have the real things they have that are speed light specific is power is now shown in a fraction of the total power. So I suspect it has 120. Yeah, it has 128 up through full power in 1 over a power of 2. You can change the angle of the head. So if you wanted to do a bounce light, look at that. I guess Yeah, that makes sense. It was moving and I haven't played with this.
Yeah, that's the high, the one next to it's the other one. I
Say
think.
again.
You know, I would bet the speedlight powers are going to be within a stop. There's really most manufacturers only have two different. Like Canon has like their weaker one and their powerful one, and they're a stop different. Nikon the same way. I think they are all pretty much within one stop output power. So instead of full power, it might be half power or vice versa, but it's going to be close.
Yeah, when I've used speed lights in a studio type environment, I've just kept them at 90 degrees on their head because that's kind of the natural way you think of them pointing off of a light stand. So instead of having to, oh, my screen's showing, not me. I was about to wave a speed light in front of you. It just seems natural to have it pointed at 90 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing the speed lights do is zoom to match the focal length of the lens.
Oh,
So,
you can change that?
yes, and that's
Ooh.
useful.
That is useful.
See the slider here?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
that's the millimeter. I see.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to show here. Maybe I could get it to show. But I've actually brought it up and played with it. You know, that's 90 degrees. And the other lights off. Now I'm sure that that's a speed light. Yeah, that's a speed light, so it's falling off. So now we can adjust its power, and we can change its zoom. So there it is, real wide. It has less power. Or we can push it in and it slams all its power straight out the center as a narrow beam. I put it over, when I first played with it here, I put it on the background and changed its zoom, and you could see it change its pattern. And it even has a rectangular pattern as opposed to a round pattern. And they have speed light type modifiers, in particular all the umbrellas and some of the soft boxes that have clamps to hold the speed light in them. So that exists. Speed lights have come a long ways in the past few years. My Nikon speed lights only have their light coupling for controlling them. So they're a little tedious to set up a multi-light configuration with the SB910s. I think their newest one is a 7000 that's radio. But if anybody goes out to buy speed lights, get something that has a radio trigger in it.
Love me some Godox.
Yep.
Thanks very much.
Same.
So again, in the monolights, they're all basically the same light. You get to choose between a power level of 500 watt seconds or 250 watt seconds. And those are both fairly common power levels for studio strobes, monolights.
Looks like it had specific models over to the right.
Where did you see this?
It showed Ari when you were scrolling through this.
Yeah, now that's in the permanent lights or continuous lights. So they have specific models there. I think all of these continuous lights are a lot more different. And it's like, if you look at studio strobes, by the time you put them behind a modifier, there's power and it's adjustable. They may not have the same peak power. There is an option to, well, they may change colors, and some of the older speed lights tended to change color with both age and the amount of use and the power levels you were shooting. And those are things that you can't really put in this model. So most of your modifiers, a 1x4 strip box is 1x4 strip box. And it doesn't matter whether it has a Profoto or a Bowen's mount on it, it's still the same strip box. And, Westcott, their rapid boxes take adapter rings for all of the different models, brand names, and strobes. So you can put that one strip box on your Godox, your Bowens, your Profoto. I guess it'll go on Westcott's new strobe too.
Yep.
That's kind of a given. How many people that are still hanging in here have some sort of lighting set up?
Ooh, me.
I never guessed.
We do.
Compared to Josh, no. But I have a few lights.
I actually just sold a couple of my lights because I had too many. So I was at
Such a thing existed.
I was at 10 and now I'm down to 7.
Jeez.
Strobes. Constant lights, that's another story. Well, that's not true. I have Canon speed lights. Oh, well, no, I'm actually still I was at 13, now I'm at 10.
I have one speed light. Does that count?
That counts.
Can you get it off camera?
I can take it off, but
Anything.
it doesn't work then.
You got to get a cord.
Yeah, that's the next step. And when I bought my first SB910, I bought the little extension cord with it. It's only a couple of feet, but that makes a lot of difference if you can just get it a little bit off of the center line of the camera.
Yeah. No.
I tell everybody that thing on the top of the camera is called a shoe because, like the things you wear on your feet, it's a terrible place to put a light or a microphone.
Ooh. Who was that?
That was Verlin.
Didn't recognize the voice.
Mostly I used it just for like fill flash to fill it in.
Yeah, when I guess I started off-camera flash with the Yang Nuo system, and you can get those for dirt, and graduated up to Godox, and I love that radio trigger, works on everything, and they got a light for every occasion, so works out great.
Yeah,
And if you switch cameras, you can still use it.
Yeah, I'm Nikon, and my Nikon triggers will work in manual for all the others, and then support high-speed sync and TTL for the Nikon body. Of course, we live in a mixed household, so I have Sony also.
Well, so that's one of the good things about the Godox system is like if you have a Godox speed light and a Nikon speed light for the Godox versions, the Godox made, but one for Nikon and one for Sony, you can control them with one trigger. And you can set the TTL, high speed sync, all that. The only outlier is that everybody but Canon only supports 3 high speed sync lights and Canon supports 5. I believe that's the way it works.
It is.
Oh, okay. Number of strobes that you can have in high-speed sync.
Yes.
Are you telling Bill that Canon is better?
No, I'm saying they have that one feature that is an advantage.
Oh,
Canon's better.
thank you, Josh. That's what I was looking
Dynamic range.
R5.
I said, sorry.
Josh and I could go round about how much use high-speed sync is, but
It's really the only reason. No, for me, the only reason that high speed sync is useful is if I want to utilize a shallower depth of field without having to go to, either a graduated density filter or something else. It's actually, honestly, I'll be quite honest. One of the reasons I started shooting Canon over anything else, when I first started shooting, Nikon's base ISO was 200, and they didn't allow ISO expansion. So for Nikon's at the time, the lowest you could go on the camera was ISO 200. And when the 5D Mark II came out, Canon had ISO expansion, and I could shoot at ISO 50. And what that allowed was for me, instead of shooting, well, this is before all the high speed sync stuff came out, but we had big monoblocks. But if you wanted a shallow depth of field outside, you either had to put on a neutral density filter to cut the volume of light, or you had, for us, right, your sync speed was only 1/200th. And so because you couldn't lower the ISO on the Nikon, you could be at ISO 200 f11. With a Canon, I could be at ISO 50 5.6. And so it allowed me in full sun to have two stops shallower depth of field. And then if I put on a circular polarizer, I could be all the way down to f4. And so even without doing any tricks, for a long time, Canon had the lowest ISO, which is what I cared about more than super high ISO, which is where the Nikons were better. But Nikon's base was 200 and Canon's base was 100, which might explain why they were a lot better higher, right? They just started higher. Now this all changed with at some point, Sony and Nikon, now you can go down to like 64 or 32, like you can go pretty low. And so that helps you to be able to shoot with strobes outdoors, with narrow depth of field. The problem with high speed sync is you lose a stop of output when you're using it in general. That's on the Godox. You lose 0.9 stops of output when you go to high speed sync. And actually, one of the reasons we went to Godox over the ProPhoto, when you go to the ProPhoto, they lose 3 stops of light using high speed sync mode. And so we just couldn't get enough output for them. But I use it quite a bit. Like if I'm shooting with like my 85 and I want to shoot at like 1.4 f2, where I just can't get it low enough. Outdoors, even at ISO 50 at 1.4, I might be at 1/2000th of a second. And there's just no way to do that without having to go to a lot of other trouble. So in that case, yeah, we do want to use high speed sync so that we can still use our light modifiers and create a shallow depth of field outdoors. But for inside, never. I would never use it inside.
it's there to control ambient light.
It's there to control depth of field more than anything.
Well, to control ambient light so you can choose the depth of field you want.
Yes. Charles says you can use a Godox trigger and combine Canon and other. No, you can't.
Yes, you can. I have an Olympus and a Nikon speed.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I forgot you could do that as well.
They all
Don't you have
they
for
have to be
Canon?
Godox ones.
What's that?
They have to be the Godox, like the Godox speed lights. You can't control a Canon made speed light, but
Oh, that's what I was. No. Well, the cool thing with the Godox is you can have a Canon trigger on your camera on a Canon camera, and in manual mode you can still fire Nikon flashes as long as you're not doing second curtain or high speed.
Yeah.
Does anybody else? I know Canon has branded radio flashes. Does Nikon have those now as well?
Yes.
Yeah, since that 7000 or whatever.
Okay. What about Sony? Are they still line of sight, or do they have radio built in?
I believe they're line of sight.
Yeah, that's what it was for a long time. That's what everybody was for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
the Nikon's the SB5000.
Yeah.
That's the
Okay.
radio controlled.
And then Profoto has their kind of speed light, the A1, right? That's kind of their speed light-ish.
Yeah, they call it the smallest studio strobe.
Profoto's so full of shit. They kill me. I like their stuff. They're good innovators, but maybe it's their sales reps that did it. I had to sit through a meeting with their sales rep. I want to stab the guy by the time we were done.
Michael Gray.
Yeah, he got fired, by the way, because he wasn't selling enough. Yeah, he really turned. He was a sales rep, and he actually turned me off from using Profoto. I was about to buy like $5,000 worth of Profoto gear because of him. I didn't.
Hmm.
So
I have a
you were
question.
from Godox for $1,000.
Yeah, half price. I mean, 2,500 maybe, 2,000.
Bill,
Yes, sir.
I have a question. Okay, the question was, could you set up a situation, and you don't need to do it here, we've gone through the software, but just curious, could you set up a bowl of fruit or something, and then put something behind it, and then adjust the lens or the camera so you could see if there's a bokeh behind it or out of focus behind it?
I think, and what I'd have to do to try that is just stack multiple of the objects that have enough so you can see if they're in focus and have the subject behind it. But that's pushing the capability of this tool. But
Can you change the lens, like from a wide angle camera lens to a telephoto lens to see?
just let me.
I thought I saw something on one of those
Yeah, you can.
screens.
You get a whole set of fixed focal length lenses, and I'm looking for how to get back to my. Oh, here, I got it here. I can get to it. Share my desktop again. So here's this floating ball. By the way, this is something you can't do in your studio because I levitated the ball.
You can hang it by a string though.
Yeah, but then you see the string. But back to Clay's question here. Here is the set of lenses you can choose from. So you got fixed 20 through 200, and then you've got every zoom I've ever heard of. And you can choose full frame or crop sensor.
Well, so can we just put a model or something in front of that ball and then focus on it, go to 200 f2.8 or f1.8 for that matter?
We can try that. We'll put this ugly dude up here.
All right.
Tell you what, we're going to have to put him right dead center. Let me get a different stage here. This will work. So what we're really wanting to try here, oh, this is timeline. Different timeline, a simple one. It'll get rid of all the extra playing around. So here's a real simple setup. Now, we were wanting to play with focusing and depth of field. Is that the intent of what we're setting up to do?
Yes.
We probably ought to have a second model.
Yep.
I'll set them. Put her back about 7 feet, and this one, there's 12 feet. There's my focus spot. Open up. Oh, we have a. We'll stay at something we
You
can.
know that 0.95 for Nikon shooters.
Yeah, I saw that, and
There's some bokeh.
oh yeah, it definitely manages focus. I just get this light, and that's with a 50 prime. There's 85. Now, why can't I move the camera? It certainly shows you depth of field very clearly.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Thank you, Bill. That's really cool.
We have quite enough light for that. ISO is my friend. And yeah, she's recognizably in focus at f16. This would also be a good tool to work with lighting groups. And that's something that always scares me is what do I do with light fall off a group on a group side to side, and if the group is deep, if I move my light source up too close to the group, I start to get fall off. Well, and we can see the fall off here. And that this lady in the back is much darker, and if we do some of this, and this is another thing that I'd like to see in this tool is a light meter. So I could just drag a light meter in here and say, what's the exposure here? But clearly the model in front's much brighter than the one behind. And that's based on the light placement. So it's modeling that correctly. Dennis, Bosserman, you've been there all night and been just silent. And I know you're not a silent person.
I have to turn off my mute button. I followed it, but that takes a lot of practice to get good at that. It looks to me like, but I can see how it could be useful.
Yeah, it's one of those things that your learning curve is real flat, and you hit that point where it starts to become intuitive, and it just boom straight up.
Yeah.
Your fingers don't. Oh, if I want to slide this around, I have to hit the space bar. I have to use the right key, right mouse button if I want to do this. Space bar to move it. Scroll wheel to zoom in and out. If you want to manipulate the model, this is what turns on the manipulation. And then you can click on a different area of the model to change what you're moving around. And the other thing you learned real quick is if I want to move her ankle or her knee, I better get in close or I won't grab the right colored ring.
That's some amazing software, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's similar to a lot of other 3D software. So if you play with that stuff, it's not too bad.
Yeah, they really need to add, you said 3D models or 3D software. They really need to give you the ability to add 3D models to it.
They said they're working on it on their FAQ or FAQ.
Okay. Who was this?
Erlen.
Berlin. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was on their website earlier and I saw on the FAQ, it's for the older version. It says for the 1.0 or 1.5 or whatever that they're working on bringing in 3D models, but it's hard. So
3D models are not easy. And, you know, one of the other things you'd love to be able to do is go pick out a wedding gown and just drop it on one of the models. And it's like, oh, that's a 3-year development program.
like it takes 3 years in real life.
Well, that's just to get her to settle on the dress.
You're funny. Come with the price tag.
On this tool or on the dress?
The dress.
Don't even want to go there.
You already did.
The granddaughters are the next ones to get married, and they have parents to take care of them.
All right, guys. Well, I got to run. Bill, thanks for presenting all this. I'm very intrigued by it. I'm on their website right now. If anybody has like specific lighting questions, feel free to message me. I'm always happy to talk lighting. But otherwise, y'all have a great evening. I got to go put my kids to bed. So
Have a good evening, Josh. I'm going to suggest that people that are interested in lighting like this, that we could set up just a Zoom meeting or if Ed wants to join us, get him to bring up Webex periodically just to delve into this.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, however you want to do it, I'm fine with. I'm happy to teach and show, and yeah, because that way I don't have to look at as many bird photos in the competition. That's my selfish side.
Do we have a competition where no birds are allowed?
So
we can do that.
So I'm actually trying to figure out a way. I have a bird feeder outside my house. We get like 8 species of birds to it, and I'm trying to figure out a way to set up a remote photo trap with strobes to catch the birds at my feeder, just as a way to like combine what everybody submits and what I submit into one.
Get yourself a blind to put out in the backyard.
Yeah, I thought about it. I also may print out a photo of a bear to put as my background. So that the birds are flash and then there's a bear just kind of stalking them in the back. I'm gonna get one of Steven's shot printed out and just put it like out of focus in the background.
Is the bear going to have a chainsaw or something?
A bear's gonna be a bear. I don't know if you've ever seen a bear, but they have chainsaws in their hands. How many color gels for a hummingbird? You know, so I'll tell you this about hummingbirds. Make me think of my grandmother. They're like, I love it. I love hummingbirds. Like they're a very special place. We've tried hummingbird feeders. We just haven't got them here, but we have starlings and we have barn swallows and we have cardinals, and the cardinals what I would try to get, because cardinals there's a pair, there's a male and female pair that come a lot. Gels at least 3, Charles. Always at least 3 gels, because then I can separate with color. So I'm gonna try to set up a strobe photo trap for birds.
It sounds like we're recruiting you, like we're getting you finally, Josh.
This quarantine is getting me. That's what it is. It's not y'all. It's just I can't do the things I normally do. Yeah. It's all good. All right, guys. Well, hey, I gotta run, but love seeing y'all. We'll see y'all for competition night. So get y'all submissions in so that Mark can do a lot of work.
Bill, thank you very much. It was really good.
See ya.
My pleasure. And I'm interested in continuing with this. And like Josh, I need people to talk to.
Well, I haven't done much lighting stuff, but if I ever do, I think I'd have to get this because it looks like it's well worth the money.
Yeah, and it really turns an image that's just kind of bland outside. If you learn to mix the lights, it just brings it up a whole nother level than
Well,
a natural light shot.
where can we see some of the work you've been doing?
Oh, most of the stuff I do with lights has been family weddings or weddings, and
Yeah.
they're tucked away on the website for customer access.
Oh, yeah, sure. Not doing any still lights or stuff like that.
No. Oh, well, competition, if there was a still life there that I did that had 3 strobes and smoke in it. If you remember the image Smoke and Mirrors that was blue and orange,
Yes. Yeah, I remember that title.
well, that was 3 strobe heads, one with a blue gel, one with an orange gel and a snoot on it that I made out of heavy aluminum foil that's black. It's a photo foil.
I'll pull that back up and take a look at it.
And it was dark enough. Actually, if you guys want to let us play for a second, I can grab that image.
Bill, what's a snoot?
It's a long cone.
The toilet paper roll on the end of your flash.
Okay, thank you.
There you go. Oh, I've got to hit. Am I still sharing or not?
There you are. You
Not.
are now. Oh, no, it's just your movie, just your camera. There you
There
are.
we go. Okay, we see your screen now.
So here's Smoke and Mirrors.
Oh, yeah, I remember that now. So you were able to pre-visualize what it was going to do.
No, this was just School of Hard Knocks.
Oh, you did it the hard way.
Well, I had originally set up, my original plan was to do 2 mirrors, so you had 2 balls in the view, and they were offset, but they were the same image.
Uh-huh.
But in as close as I was, the folding of the path for the second image made it much, much smaller, so it never worked out. And there was no way to compensate for that. So it's like, okay, I've worked at this for a day. What do I do that's at least interesting to put in competition that somebody might blame Josh for instead of me? So if you look at this image from to the right and above of this ball, there is a blue light coming down.
Yeah.
And it has a grid on it, a tight grid. And coming from higher, well, you can see the beam here in the smoke, is the real narrow focus beam through the snoot.
Okay.
And the mirrors were there because I had them. I had them on the table and had them double-sided tape stuck to steel blocks that held them. It would hold them up. Looked like I set out to do smoke and mirrors, and I got something that ended up being there.
Very creative.
It turned out to be more an exercise in lighting.
Yeah.
Another exercise in lighting that I did, and I'm just going back and, okay, where is, I'm looking for my Explorer window. It's just, here we go. Oh, Webex is going to stay on top, period. It's an image I call fishy, 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 or here fishy, fishy.
Oh, I really like that one. That was the lure.
Yeah,
I thought that was really well lit. That was a good job.
now that's a light painting.
Yeah, I thought it might be. It
And
looks
I
like,
think there's 8 frames in there. And it's illuminated with a little LED flashlight and a fiber optics adapter.
cool. Very well lit and very sharp focus.
Well, that's the Nikon 105 macro on a D850 body. So it's got all the hardware there to do it right.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing those.
If somebody wants to talk light painting at this level, I'm willing to do it. Last April, I did a full week with John Hartman on light painting.
I'd be interested in it, but my brain's full for tonight.
Oh, Patty, we need to do probably, and Josh and I will cross paths on this, pleasantly cross paths. Josh has one approach to light painting, and my approach is different in how you collect the images for the painting.
It'd be interesting to have a comparison, like, you know, like both techniques.
We can do that. But this is like, if the people in the club are interested in hearing me talk some more on the light painting or on the tabletop photography, which is something I tend to do a lot of. Several years ago, I did one of it's actually on display, a black and white of a 1-inch bolt, which was a black and white that I shot with 2 or 3 strobes with colored gel, because the gels made the colors in the rust on the bolt stand out. And then I processed that monochrome.
Cool.
So, like Josh, I love talking and teaching, and I think I have something to offer to everybody here.
Well,
Most definitely. Most definitely. I think, yeah, show an image like this, and then if you had the a couple of post production views of how you set it up, that would be cool.
This one would be easy to show, because I literally put it down on a board and used a piece of safety wire, which is the yuppie version of Bailey wire, to hold it in place, and set the camera on a tripod and started doing exposures in as dark area as I could possibly get. So some of the exposures are just this much of the fly. And one exposure, all I took from it was the hook. So yeah, I could recreate this and do a tabletop light painting class.
something to look forward to.
Okay. Bug Patty and we'll, or me, we'll set it up. I want to wait a few more months before I do another presentation.